Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this Fast Track 360 demo. My name is Heather Wildman, and I'm with the National Retail Production Support Team. And our primary function is to assist both loan officers and loan processors to get their loans in and through to closing. New loan officers who are just starting with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group should find this a helpful springboard to getting up and running in Encompass. You can enter any questions you might have into the questions box, and I will answer them at the end of the training. All participants are muted. Handouts are provided as a part of this demonstration to supplement the information given on this training. The Fast Track 360 Demo Supporting Materials handout has hyperlinks to an abundance of corresponding material for the topics covered today. So let's go ahead and get started. And we are going to be creating a new loan. So many times your borrower will be creating their loan from an online platform, which will push the application over to Fast Track 360. However, there may be times when you as the loan officer may need to manually input an application if the borrower is not utilizing your Apply Now link. So this is what we're going to be covering today. And once you're creating your loan, you want to make sure that if you do work with specific platforms that you've reached out to support, because sometimes when the loans are created, they generate out of our old web center portal. And so support can actually fix this on their end to put it into either Blend or Consumer Connect, as long as your borrower has not yet e-consented. So very important to note that you can update the platform used for your files as long as your borrower hasn't yet e-consented. So in order to start a new file, you need to be in the prospects folder only. So right now I'm in multiple files. I'm in multiple folders. You can see this in the upper left where it says loan folder. 4 folders are selected. And the icon that I need to be able to create a new loan is grayed out. So in order to see that icon, I'm going to unselect every other folder aside from prospects. And now that icon with the piece of paper and a green plus sign is now available to be clicked. And this is what you use to generate a new loan in the system. Once you click that button, you're going to be given some choices as far as your templates. So you want to make sure you're choosing the template correctly from the gate, out the gate. This credit pre-qual only is to be used if you are submitting a loan for a pre-qualification from an underwriter with a TBD address. So you want to make sure you're using this because it generates an additional milestone for the underwriter to check prior to the creation of the actual loan disclosures and all of that stuff. There's retail purchase and retail refinance, pretty self-explanatory, and you just want to pick the one that's correct for your product. Once you've done that, it's going to generate a new loan. And so for the purposes of our training today, we actually have already generated this loan. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over into this new loan. So once we're here, this is the borrower summary screen. And I want to make sure everybody is aware of the different spots in this form that are really important for your loan to get up and running in the correct manner. So at the very top up here, we have the channel. And so as long as you're doing a retail in-house loan, this is going to be the correct choice for this channel. If you're doing a brokered loan, you would select that up here and then click this box as well. But for a regular retail in-house file, we're going to come down on the borrower summary screen and make sure that the loan program is selected. You can select this by using the little magnifying glass next to loan program. And the various programs will come up and you can select what is best for your program. If you know you're doing any kind of special arm or anything like that, there's a whole list of these in here and they're alphabetized. If you have an expanded access program, then you're going to double click on that folder that's at the top so that you're creating the correct template for your expanded access loan. So for this loan, we're just doing a regular agency 30-year fixed, and the closing cost template for this would be the traditional 2015 PRMG bank fees. But the closing cost templates are going to vary depending on your program. If you have a DPA or any kind of specific loan program that has specific fees, it's also worth noting that certain states will have specific fees. These states are including New Jersey, North Carolina, or Iowa, where they are not allowed to charge underwriting or processing fees. So you want to make sure that when you're selecting your template in here for your closing costs, that is accurate, but you also want to make sure that your data entry is correct for the geographical location of the property. So anytime you need one of those states to have the fees populated correctly, your best bet is to come in here and enter the city, state, and zip code exactly in that order and click save, and the fee should update automatically. And if not, you can let us know or let support know. Also, I want to point out in here that under tools, you have the option to do piggyback loans. If you have a second with the DPA, this is where you're going to go to generate the second loan as it mirrors the first. So there is additional information on how to create these included in the handout. So you can just reference that and let us know if you need any help once you have one. So as far as that template that we discussed with the broker channel, if you have over here on the left-hand side, the log, if you're noticing that this milestone path is not accurate for what you need, if you have a brokered loan, this will look different. If this is a DPA second, this will look different. Then the way to fix that is to make sure that your channel is corrected here, and then you will go up to loan, manage milestone templates, and apply automatic mode. This will tell the system that you wish to apply the automatic mode for this template that you've selected, and it'll change the milestone template accordingly. In our borrower summary, there's a couple spots I want to point out that are often missed. Under borrower information, there's this box right here that has no co-applicant, and that is currently checked. That is correct because we do not have a co-borrower on this loan. If I were to have a co-borrower, I would want to make sure that this box becomes unchecked, because that will open up the HMDA data on page 3 of your 1003 for the co-borrower. Otherwise, you'll notice that that's missing. You will be able to enter everything for the co-borrower and run your AUS just the same, but you won't be able to enter the ethnicity, race, sex, all of those things. So you want to make sure this box is checked accordingly. If you do not have a co-applicant, then you can leave this box checked, and that will also filter over into some of the AUS's data that it recognizes from your file. Down here, we have a section when you do not have a realtor. So if you have a purchase where it's a for sale by owner, then this is going to tell the system that you do not need the data entry for the buyer realtor or seller realtor, or you can select if just one of them will not be utilized. So that's important later down the road, because those titles will copy over to the CD, and it requires data entry if this is left undone. This section up here for the credit information, this is where you will need to go in as the loan originator to make sure that you've indicated that you've received authorization from this borrower to run their credit. So you would just simply come in here, click the calendar, select the date, and make sure you've completed the authorization method, whether it's phone, face-to-face, internet, or mail. Having this in there ensures compliance with all the laws of the land to make sure that we had that authorization to run the credit. Now in this credit section, this is all currently blank. So once we've run credit, this information will populate automatically from the credit report, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But just to point out right now that you can immediately tell that this loan does not have a credit report associated with it. So this is how you can confirm afterwards that it is input correctly. So now we're going to go ahead and run credit for our borrower. You've input all the information that is required to run a credit report, and you can come over to services and order credit, or you can order it from up here. There's a few different ways to do the same thing in this system. So by clicking order credit, it's going to come up with the different credit providers. So PRMG has a relationship with 3 different credit providers: Credit Plus, Birchwood, and Acronet. This will be different depending on your team, your region, your branch. So if you're not sure which one your team is using, you can just confirm that information with your branch manager. And you want to make sure that you have your login credentials for the company that you are using. So if you don't have login credentials for credit, you will reach out to support@prmg.net, and they will get those set up for you. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to be using Acronet. These screens will be similar for all 3, but if you have any questions regarding the interfacing of the others or Acronet, you can always reach out to National Retail Production Support, and they're going to be able to help you with making sure that you have it correct. Just want to make sure I've updated my username and password for this training, because this is not an actual credit report for a real borrower for our demonstration purposes. So I want to make sure that the request type over here to the right is listed as new request. Once that's done, you can make sure that your data pulled over correctly, which it always should. This is interfaced with Encompass, and you click finished. It's just going to take a few moments, but when it's doing this, it's also going to be dragging the credit report that gets pulled into the file automatically. So you won't need to print it out separately and save it to get it into the loan. It happens intrinsically with this process. And now we have our George Q test file credit report. You can scroll down and see your credit scores. And in order to make sure that this data gets pulled in correctly into your loan file, we're going to hop back over and say import liabilities. These options are also available on page 2 of the 1003, just to point out another place where you can do the same thing. I like to do it from this page because you can see the immediate results of what you're doing. So by saying import liabilities, the system is going to automatically omit anything that's a zero balance. You don't have to worry about combing through that stuff, and just say import. Great. Now we have our debts in our file, and to make sure that our FICO score is pulled over correctly, we can hop back over to the borrower summary and scroll down to that credit section, and there you have it. The borrower's scores for all 3 bureaus, as well as the credit reference number, are listed in there now. So now that we have our FICO, and it's a pretty decent one, we're going to go ahead and run pricing. So you should have been provided with logins from support for Optimal Blue Enhanced. If not, then you can reach out to support and they will be able to provide you with those login credentials. And just like everything else, there's multiple ways to get to the same place. So for our purposes on this training, I always tend to lean on the services tab to go through, because everything's all combined under there. Search product and pricing. Under providers, you want to make sure you're selecting Optimal Blue Enhanced and say submit. Your credentials will be saved in here after the first time you use it. You're going to say continue. And then it's going to pull you over into Optimal Blue, where you'll be able to see the data that pulls over from your loan. There are a couple places that I want to point out that might not copy over correctly, so you want to make sure you're putting your eyeballs on these. The non-occupant co-borrower section that's over here on the right-hand side of the screen, this doesn't always get updated. If you have a non-occupant co-borrower, you want to make sure you come in here and select yes. Also down here, the number of finance properties that close. This is a red asterisk, so that means that anything with red is a required field. And so if your borrower is a first-time home buyer and this is going to be their first property, you're just going to select the first one down. Borrower owns one finance property at time of close. Once we have all of our data input correctly, we're going to go ahead and click submit. And now we can see the eligible products and also ineligible products that pull up from our pricing scenario. If you're ever receiving an ineligible product for one of the products you want to use, you can click on the actual hyperlink and it will give you the reason for the disqualification. And there's the reason for this one. But for our loan, we want to just do a straight agency 30-year fix. So by clicking on it under the eligible products, it will bring up the pricing grid for what this loan looks like with rates. It will default to a 30-day lock period. If you're able to do a shorter lock period or need a longer one, you can adjust those by clicking on these numbers up here. And by selecting the rate with the correct pricing as you desire, you can come over here to the left-hand side and select. And this will give you the grid. If you want to go ahead and update this to requesting your lock, you're going to click that down here. If you're not ready yet to update or request your lock, then by printing out this grid, it's a helpful tool to always have for reference as to what you quoted the borrower on that day. Now, it is important to note that this update Encompass box should be able to update the system if you selected a different rate or different pricing than what your loan file has, but it doesn't accurately update. So you want to make sure if you're not locking at the time of this price out, that you've updated your loan in the 2015 itemization with the current pricing and the interest rate that you're selecting to quote the borrower. Now back to our loan. It is also worth noting that if you guys need a pricing exemption on your loan, then some of you will have access to do so within your screen. I believe it's managers, sales managers. If not, then you can get with your branch manager on the process for requesting a price exception on your loan, which would be paid for by the branch. Going back to our loan, now that we've got our pricing, we're going to order a mortgage insurance quote. It's important to wait until your pricing is correct because the MI quote is going to be, the pricing for it will be based on the DTI for your loan. So having that input correctly and making sure that your loan, your DTI, which is listed up here in the borrower ribbon, is in place for you to be able to get a MI quote. So under services again, we're going to select order mortgage insurance. And we know we need it on this one because we have a conventional loan that has a LTV exceeding 80%. So in order to run an MI quote, you just select one of the providers that we have. All of them should be available to you automatically. And once you've selected to go into their screen, you can update the parameters as needed, but the MI coverage is something that you can look up to make sure that you have the accurate amount. And any other additional information regarding if this is going to be lender paid or borrower paid, if it's going to be a single premium or monthly, all of those things. And then once you click rate quote, the quote will come up and you'll be able to import fee from the quote so that the system is updated with the exact factors for the mortgage insurance quote that you're using. So if you have any additional questions on ordering mortgage insurance, you are welcome to reach out to National Retail Production Support and we're happy to help. The reason we have 5 different companies at this time is because we have different pricing available to us between all of them. Some are good in some capacities and some are great in others. On government loans, you will not be using the mortgage insurance ordering through services. You're going to be making sure that you have your mortgage insurance completed here. So this little button that's next to the MIP funding fee has an edit field value that you can click on, a piece of paper with a pencil, and this is where the government mortgage insurance information gets put in. If you have an FHA loan, this Get MI button is not going to be grayed out. This will actually be a task that you need to make sure you're clicking Get MI, as the loan will then populate updated MI factors based on your case number and your LTV. So it's very important to make sure that you're aware that this Get MI is applicable only to FHA. And then down here, we have a section where you can answer questions regarding your veteran to make sure that it's properly calculating your funding fee for your borrower. Same with USDA. If you have a USDA with a guarantee fee, that data will be pulled in over here as well. So now that we've received our mortgage insurance quote, we're going to go ahead and run our AUS. So we have 3 different AUSs that we use with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. DU is the most common. LPA, or Loan Product Advisor, is Freddie Mac's interface, and we have that integrated into our system. USDA uses GUS, which is not something that we have included inside of 360. So if you need a GUS run on the USDA file, the loan processor is who would be responsible for doing that for you. So services, once again, request underwriting. This is how you're going to put in a request for your AUS. You can see your options here: Fannie Mae DU on ePass or Freddie Mac Loan Product Advisor system to system. So you'll select the Fannie Mae DU on ePass and you will submit to DU on ePass. Another screen will pop up, and this is where you will enter your credentials for reissuing credit. So if you are using Acronet, then these credentials are a specific password that you will be provided with when you first come into PRMG. If it is Credit Plus or Birchwood, this will be the exact same as your actual username and password for the credit company you use. If you want to confirm the reference number is accurate, you come here and click this Edit Credit Reference Number, and you can actually, it doesn't look like it from first appearances, but you can come in here and edit this number in here. So a lot of times if you have a report that's new and you have a file with an older report, you want to make sure that you're capturing the new reference number, and by doing so in here, it will assure that that goes through DU. We're not going to process this DU at this time since this is just a test file. Yes, I want to cancel the submission. So the next thing, you have your AUS, approve eligible or accept from LPA. The next thing that's very cool in this system that I want to point out is under forms. You as the loan officer have a tool in here that you can use, and you want to make sure you're always clicking your show in alpha and show all. It's called the loan officer checklist. This was created as a means to help loan officers compile information based on their loan. There's an option for an AUS if you have your DU or your LPA, and there's also an option for manual underwrite as the documentation requirements differ between the two. So if you have one or the other, you would click on that and you have a checklist here for how to make sure this file is going in the right direction. This is not a required form, but it is recommended that loan officers, especially as you're getting started and aren't really sure of all the steps required for you, that you're able to come in here and reference something that can guide you. There are also hyperlinks on this form for different portions of what you might need to know. If you have an AFS loan that needs to go to them, then you have both your instructions and the referral sheet that's required for when you send the file to AFS. If you have disclosure problems, the link to the WebMax disclosure training is included in here. And it can't be overstated how important that document is to helping you guys get up and running with sending out disclosures. Income calculation, there's a link to that document here. And the list goes on. So you're able to come in here, and then you can also add in notes down here to your processor that might be helpful for whether or not the appraisal needs to be ordered, or if the borrower's getting a gift, et cetera, et cetera. So this, again, not required, but very helpful and recommended. So once you're doing all this and you're ready to actually start issuing out disclosures, the first thing you need to do is to send out your e-consent. So there's multiple ways to do that in this system. One of the main ways is to come up here to the e-folder tab and click e-consent, where it has the little orange question mark. This is because the e-consent has not yet been accepted on this loan. So we can request that by clicking on the button, and it's going to pull up an email format that's going to go out to the borrower requesting their e-consent, so you can see it as it will appear to them. And here is that email. So making sure that the appropriate borrower's box is selected next to them and that the correct subject line is selected. So PRMG retail customer is what you will always want to use with retail versus wholesale in your subject line. The difference is huge. The wholesale email that goes out will refer borrowers back to the wholesale disclosure department versus the retail email, which is going to refer the borrower back to you as the loan officer when they have questions on their disclosures. A lot of times borrowers who get rerouted the wrong way will get impatient, and none of us want that. So you want to make sure you have your borrower pointed in the right direction from the get-go. If you need additional users notified of this e-consent and when it is accepted, such as your loan officer assistant or your junior processor, you can always add those names in here and update the notification user through click a date and say add. I also want to show that in some cases, your borrowers are going to be able to e-consent via their online platform. So when they're using your Apply Now button, depending on whether you're using Consumer Connect or Blend, then this is going to be a way for you to determine if they have done that in the system. So in the disclosure tracking, under the compliance timeline, the e-consent listed right up here is going to give you a little magnifying glass. By clicking this, it gives you more of a history on the e-consent process. And it will tell you over here under source, whether this is a Blend or a Consumer Connect loan. So this will say accepted once it is, and it will give you all this information on how the e-consent was accepted. The sent date on that will be blank if it was done within the online platforms. So in order to complete your disclosures, you must finish your qualification milestone. So these milestones up here will be referred to throughout your stay at PRMG, and these are different ways that we refer to the passing of the file. So the qualification milestone is a requirement of the loan officer to complete this, and it is a requirement to have this finished prior to pushing out disclosures. So you'll see in here that you have a list of documents. These are just recommended documents based on the actual loan type, but these aren't required. Anything that is required will show up with a red asterisk, and most likely it will be over here under tasks. So you want to make sure you're completing your tasks, and any and all required fields will be needed to be completed. These will all pull over to your 1003. So you want to make sure you have this data entered and finish this milestone prior to issuing your disclosures. In order to make sure that your loan gets routed to the correct processor, it's really important to make sure that you have in the setup milestone the correct processing queue selected. So if you aren't sure which processing queue your processor is running under, you can just reach out and confirm that with them. Typically, if they report to a specific branch, then that branch is going to be what group you would select. And in doing this, you're making sure that your loan processor will be able to see your file. If you actually know who your processor is going to be, you can jump down to the send to processing milestone and enter that loan processor's name here. You do not need to complete these milestones in order for this data to stick. So just pointing that out, you do not need to finish it, but by clicking save, that loan processor should now be able to access that file. You will get alerts that come up whenever you click save on anything that is outstanding. You want to make sure you're paying attention to these, especially as send initial disclosures. That's something that on this file, we have this alert, and it will show you up in the left-hand side under alerts and messages, the due date of those disclosures. So for this loan, the disclosures were already supposed to have been sent. So if you have a loan where you've gone into it and this date has passed, then you will need to restart your file so that you are in compliance and have sent out disclosures within that 3-day window of triggering TRID. So I want to just jump back over to disclosure tracking. This is going to be something you guys reference periodically throughout the loan to ensure that all of the information is accurate for what has gone out to the borrower and that the borrower has signed and sent everything back. So one important thing in here is your estimated closing date. The days of interest and everything that goes along with closing in impounds will be based on this estimated closing date. So if you have this date and it isn't correct, then please make sure it is corrected, as the closing departments will rely on this date for the accuracy of their pipeline and making sure that their loans are getting out by the close date. That concludes our training for today. I am not sure if you guys had any questions. I don't see any in the box currently, but if you do have anything that you need assistance with, especially if you're new and just starting out with the company, then you're very much encouraged to come to National Retail Production Support. We are here to help boost you guys through those first few months when it's very difficult and you're not sure where to go for things. So if you guys need anything, make sure you reach out. National Retail Production Support. We are an app on Okta. It's a house with a little hand holding it. Thank you so much, and that concludes our training.